So these are the tools of Batik. I have an electric frying pan. It's heated to 275 degrees, and I have beeswax. It smells like the bees, the flowers they went to, and paraffin. And this is called a chanting tool, T-J-A-N-T-I-N-G. Chanting means in Indonesia, wax writing. And these are special wax brushes. They don't fall apart. And I keep them in a nice point. For this one, I use, this is the Chinese brush, and this is the Japanese brush. And I use this one for detail work, and this one to fill in areas. These pieces have been flipped upside down, and I'm making sure that every single line that I've made ends so that I can put dye inside of it. Over here, I have to look for these teeny tiny itty bitty places where the wax could come through. Where the wax did not come through on the back side. I have teeny tiny itty bitty places. Right here's one. Here a few right here. So I'm putting hot wax on those. Okay, now we're going to flip them back over and put some dye to make the rivers.
Hey boys and girls, see my mask? It was no problem for me with COVID. These are my blue dyes, so I'm going to pick some out. Oh yes, here's an indigo blue. You know, we grow that here. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And a deep maroon. That ought to be enough. Maybe I want one really pretty green, blue-green. Let's try that. All right. Now, this is chemical water, and you use chemistry to make dyes. Because dyeing is math. Isn't that cool? All right, so I've got these 4 lined up here. And you have to be very exact with your measurements. I'm going to put 1/8 of a teaspoon in each of these. And I'm going to start with the indigo, because that's what we love, isn't it? This is as much dye as you can put in and still get the right chemistry. All right, we have a blue-green here. See, that's the lavender. These dyes were invented about the year that I was born. Isn't that cool? So I'm the first generation to have them. They're called Procyon dyes, and they chemically bond with the cloth. You have to stir it up so that all the pigments go in. And then you get them all, each one has its own little brush so that you don't contaminate the dyes. I wear these gloves just like a scientist. And I have a hood, and it pulls out all of the dyes so that I stay healthy. All right, now here comes the chemistry. You add soda ash, a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 cup, which is 1/8 of a teaspoon. Got to do some math. All right, here's my little 1/8 of a teaspoon right here. And you just get a little bit and toss it in there. 1/2 teaspoon. Kind of like cooking, isn't it? You know, when your mama's cooking or your dad. These are my favorite brushes. They're called cat's tongue. And you'll see why in a minute. All right, we're going to be over in with the boutiques.
Save some of this indigo for these other pieces, so I'm going to pour about 1/2 of it. And I'm going to start with something called a hockey brush. It's Japanese. You start down on one end. Isn't that beautiful? So the indigo plant is planted all over the sea islands, and it was how South Carolina made a lot of its money in the olden days. Now, I'm gonna let this dye get married with another color. I'm gonna let this blue come in and just say, ha. I always like to have music whenever I'm working, because it just makes my day better. Do you like music? I do. And that's how you make a color gradation. You just do a little bit of colors together at a time. And that way you don't even see it happening. But it is happening. You have to be real careful not to splatter any dye, because you can't erase anything with these dyes. Now before I start those rivers, and they're going to go up in different colors, I'm going to take my other big hockey brush. And let it do this. This blends the dyes even better. See, this is the cat's tongue. See how it has a point on it? You can see why it's named that. And I'm also going to make sure that this goes along this edge a little bit, just so that it blends. The reason why I like this brush is it gets into teeny tiny places. Whoop, I got another little piece of dye in the place I didn't want it. So, once again, I'm just going to drop a little bit of the chemical water in that one little spot, and it will dissipate, which means it will spread out. And it won't even be there later. Okay, well, it's going to take a long time to get it all together. If you want, we can speed it up. Procyon MX dyes are cold water dyes that are fixed chemically. Cellulose fibers like cotton, linen, hemp, bamboo, paper, and wood all work with these Procyon dyes. Fiber reactive dyes permanently attach using a covalent, an electron sharing bond. These molecules carry a chromophone which absorbs varying spectrums of light, allowing only certain spectrums to reflect. Soda ash raises the pH. Baking soda is a much weaker alkali. Urea helps dissolve more dye in a smaller amount of water. It's a humectant, keeping the fabric wetter longer. Water softener reduces calcium in hard water. The Edo period is between 1603 and 1868 in the history of Japan. The term ukiyo-e means pictures of the floating world in paintings or woodblock prints. Hokusai and Hirosige are two of the artists that I like to study for my own work. The silks that I'm working on in this film are made from maps. But I began flying with my brother over the Sea Islands of Georgia in 1980. I photographed with 35mm slide film that became the first designs for large-scale art from the aerial perspective. Depictions of complex patterns of the coast motivates me to show the vulnerability of threatened landscapes. Today, my Nikon D90 camera and iPhone excursions in the sky have led to groundbreaking exhibitions. Our next exhibition together is Shifting East Coast Barrier Islands, which will be a film and show with Dr. Orrin Pilkey, talking about the vulnerability of our coastlines. So the reason why batik is called resist dyeing is because you put a layer of wax, hot wax, paraffin, and beeswax to resist the next dye bath. That's what I'm doing right now. It's real easy to do in these areas that are already waxed, but you have to be much more careful in the areas that aren't waxed already. So now I'm waxing out the marshes that are edging the mainland of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Going to museums to study an artist's entire body of work will really stimulate growth. Georgia O'Keeffe, Whistler, John Singer Sargent, Bernard, Augustus Tack. The list is endless of artists that bring color and light to us. Gauguin. Oh, it just is wonderful to go and see what another artist has done with their lifetime. Monet may be my favorite artist. I like the way he came repeatedly to the same subjects. So now I'm getting ready to iron out this piece. And here we have Isle of Palms, Deweese, and Capers Islands. And the interesting thing is, this is a developed island. This is an environmentally developed island. And this is an undeveloped island. So they're totally different from each other. But right now I'm getting off any little pieces of dye. And this is the front side, and you can see where the wax is, and then the places where it's not. So then I'm gonna flip it over and clean the other side. All right. And I just have to make sure that there aren't any little spots of dye on here that I don't want. But this looks pretty good. And I like this part, the ironing.